Hey, so before I started filming, I accidentally dropped one of the light bulbs that I use for my lighting, and it basically fucking shattered. The whole thing is just, it's the whole thing's just fucked. And basically, now I only have one light source, and it's dead fucking center. I'm not entirely sure if that makes the glare in my glasses better or worse, but I kind of don't give a shit anymore. I saw it chapter 2, so let's talk about it! Based on the novel by Stephen King, It Chapter 2 is the sequel, technically, or the second half of the It story that was started in 2017, and this I don't know if the same guys came back from the first one to make this one, but this one was written by Gary Dauberman, directed by Andy Muschietti, and it stars Jessica Chastain, James McAvoy, Bill Hader, Isaiah Mustafa, Jay Ryan, James Ransone, and Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise the Clown. And It Chapter 2 picks up 27 years later, after the Losers Club of the first movie has grown up to lead successful lives, and they've all left Derry, Maine, and the only one who stayed behind was Isaiah Mustafa's character, who I don't remember any of the characters' names. I think his name was Mike. I don't remember any of the characters' names. I didn't bother. Children start dying in Derry, Maine again, and people start going missing, and dismembered in rivers and shit like that. And they're like, Pennywise the Clown's back. We all made an oath. We got to come back and stop him. And so the gang gets back together to go back to Derry, Maine, and stop once and for all Pennywise the Clown. First and foremost, the cast is damn near perfect. Everybody was cast just so goddamn well for who the children were gonna grow up to be. I mean, it's just damn near perfect. It is just, I mean, you don't even need to like be reminded who's who. You know, like they don't have to do a flashback and be like, oh, this kid grew up into this person, because they don't look anything alike. No, they look very much alike, and it's completely realistic to see that person grow up to be this person. They get along great. They have great chemistry on screen. They literally feel like they've been friends for years, despite the fact that the characters in the movie have been separated for 27 years. The casting is just damn near perfect. The second film is also a lot funnier than the first movie. Not only is it funnier, it's also just way more entertaining in general. The horror set pieces that exist just can 100% outdo anything the first movie did. The first movie felt kind of tame, and there was only one real moment where I thought that the first movie was really scary, and that was in the when they were using the projector to look at the photographs, and Pennywise comes out and he's like literally the size of the room and he's chasing the kids around. I mean, that was probably the scariest part, because it gets very surreal and you're just like, whoa, like this is weird and creepy and unearthly. And that was probably, in my opinion, the highlight of the first movie. And if we're going for surrealism and otherworldliness, I feel like that the second movie definitely tops the first movie in that aspect. The set pieces, 100%, are way more inventive and surreal and actually kind of creepy and scary, and just overall, just way more entertaining. There was a point where I wasn't even scared. I was just grinning ear to ear because I just loved what I was seeing. I truly enjoyed this movie way more than the first, just because it's overall just way more entertaining. The movie is very long. I mean, the movie is 2 hours and 50 minutes. You know, it's 3 hours long. This is a 3-hour clown movie, and that kind of runtime for a horror movie might put off some people, and I've heard some people say that the pacing was a little off, and you definitely feel the runtime of the movie, and I can say that didn't happen for me. I was actually very entertained. Because I was so entertained, the movie kind of flew by. I was actually kind of shocked that when we got to what felt like the climax, I mean, the movie had another hour to go, but it didn't even feel like we spent 2 hours getting there. The pacing worked for me. It's very long, but in my opinion, you don't feel the runtime unless you're not having fun. I do think this movie spends a little too much time retrading steps from the first movie and going back and revisiting scenes from the first movie, and even introducing new scenes with the young cast that weren't in the first movie. And it caused kind of a confusion for me, because you wind up wondering, like, when the fuck did this take place? You know what I mean? Like, oh, we weren't together all summer, but it's like, Well, when did all this happen? Were you guys gone for a month? Were you guys gone for a week? Like, what's the timeline? Like, there's flashbacks in this movie that actually confuses the timeline for me of the first film, because I'm wondering, like, okay, well, when did this clubhouse scene happen? When did that scene in the park happen? When did this happen? When did that happen? You know, like, what's the timeline here? You know what I mean? There's no definite, like, structure of the flashbacks. So even though we're flashing back, fuck you. Even though we're flashing back 27 years ago, I'm confused about when that flashback is supposed to take place. Also, the new scenes with the young cast were just really bad. I mean, it's obvious that within the 2 years of the first movie releasing and this movie releasing, that the children from the first movie have grown up, their voices have gotten deeper, they've developed a bit more, they've gotten taller, they've grown into their features in their face, and this movie uses the de-aging technology to make them look like they did 2 years ago. And frankly, it's kind of off-putting. Like, you can tell that they're taller, but their faces still look like they have baby faces. And you're like, okay, you're 6 foot tall, but you look like you have the face of a 9-year-old. Also, I think they pitch shifted their voices to be a little bit squeakier to remove some of the bass from, I guess, puberty. And it just sounds really like mechanical and like almost like bad auto-tune. And I'm not sure if this was intentional or not, but some of the scenes with the kids talking, they're talking really, really fast. Like, faster than you'd think they would normally be talking. Even for the characters that do talk fast, they're talking faster than you think they would. And like, it's almost like they're talking so fast that you kind of can't catch what the fuck they're talking about. And I'm not sure if maybe they just sped up the footage just by a little bit to kind of hide the deepness of the voice. But it was just really bad and off-putting. Like, honestly, the scenes with the young cast are really bad. Fortunately, they're few and far between, and they don't take up the majority of the movie, and they only happen, you know, a little bit. But it was just some of those scenes with the young cast were just really poorly executed. Now, whether Stephen King intended upon this or not, I mean, I'm not sure. I never read the original It novel, and I don't know much about Stephen King, but whether he intended for this or not, it is an allegory for trauma. It's an allegory for childhood trauma, and it's an allegory for dealing with your childhood trauma, confronting the trauma, moving past the trauma, healing from it. This movie's allegory for trauma feels much more blatant and less subtle than the first movie did. And because of that, I felt like it was a little weaker in Pennywise's presence. Like, Pennywise feels a lot less personal in this movie than he did in the first movie. In the first movie, Pennywise is directly attacking these children. You know, they are the prey. And, you know, at times he really does feel like this omnipresent villain of that first movie. Whereas in this movie, Pennywise just feels sort of like a haunting in the minds of the adult characters. He doesn't feel very personal. There are moments where the movie spends time, you know, going back over the kids', you know, fears of like, oh, this, you know, particular, like the leper for the one germaphobe kid, and the father for the girl, like, you know, all the horror, like their horror. And Pennywise isn't, I mean, we know that it's Pennywise doing it, but Pennywise isn't really on screen during these sequences, and because of that, he feels much less involved in the film, and it actually made me long for Pennywise to be on screen more. There's a couple of good scenes involving him. I just wish that he had more to do. I wish he was on screen more. I wish his presence was felt more. I mean, the movie's 3 hours long, and I feel like Pennywise wasn't in a whole lot of it, and I kind of wish it was the opposite. The film retreads a lot of ground from the first movie in terms of the trauma that the characters go through. The first film focused a lot on the girl and the kid with the stutter, and you know, and only on particular characters. This film actually basically stays focusing on the characters that we focused majorly on in that first movie. The characters that we didn't really explore the traumas of, like, for example, the kid whose parents died in a horrible fire. We know the parents died in a horrible fire, but that trauma isn't as explored as, you know, oh, is Beverly still Daddy's little girl? You know, we're still going over Beverly being Daddy's little girl, but we are barely scratching the surface of what it's like to lose both of your parents in a fucking fire. You know, and so a lot of the underdeveloped traumas that weren't explored in the first movie, unfortunately are still unexplored in this movie. And I felt that it just got kind of monotonous. Like, we already know about this, but what about that other kid? What about this kid? How, how is, I just would have liked to explore different kids, you know what I mean? Like we spent the first movie exploring those kids. What about these kids? Let's explore these kids. But again, that doesn't really happen. Overall, this movie is much better than the first. I enjoyed myself watching it way more than I enjoyed watching the first movie. I personally gave that first movie a 3 out of 5. I was kind of underwhelmed. I felt it was overhyped. I felt it wasn't very scary and kind of cliche even. And this movie is much more entertaining, much funnier, much scarier. The set pieces are much more entertaining. I was just having a lot of fun. There's even moments in the movie where I would say there's a really nice reference to The Thing. And there even comes moments where it feels like we're treading upon Evil Dead 2 territory, which I really, really enjoyed. Overall, this movie is just a much better film than the first one. It's a little long, but you don't really feel it, and it spends too much time on things that we don't really need to spend time on, and not enough time on the things that I wanted to spend time on. But overall, it's a really good movie, and I'm going to give It Chapter 2 a 4 out of 5. Thank you for watching this review. If you liked the video, please hit the like button. I would appreciate if you could subscribe for more movie reviews every Monday. I also try to upload trailer reactions during the week. I have a couple that I haven't done yet. They're on backlog. I have to make them and edit them and put them up. Those will probably go up during the week after this goes up. So keep a lookout for those. Thank you for watching. You can find me on social media at The St. Watson. See you later.